I love talking about branding and trademarks and copyright. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a legal expert of any kind. I do know a little bit about this stuff just because of my experience in the music industry. So, and with podcasts and things. So I do know some. I do know a little bit. I know enough to have an opinion. For example, earlier when we were talking about the latest update on Taylor Swift being sued by Marin Flag over the trademark of, Marin Flag has this podcast, Confessions of a Showgirl. Taylor Swift has the album Life of a Showgirl. And so there is a legal battle that, again, I still can't believe it goes on, but it does. I think it's frivolous. But anyway, so I'm fascinated by all of these things. This I did not know about until today. I didn't know this one was going on, but this is interesting. This is another trademark situation. This is from digitalmusicnews.com, one of my favorite websites for music industry news. Sydney Beach brand beats M&M in legal battle over Swim Shady trademark. Okay, so they've been using this trademark, this company, Swim Shady. It says here, Sydney Beach brand Swim Shady has secured a trademark victory against rapper M&M, who argued the company's name was too similar to his alter ego. It says here, will the real Swim Shady please stand up? The Sydney Beach brand won a major victory in the trademark fight against rapper M&M, who argued that the company's name was too similar to his established branding and longtime alter ego, Slim Shady. Now, the Australian Registrar of Trademarks has narrowed the scope of the musician's claim. On Wednesday, the IP Australia delegate, IP for intellectual property, the IP Australia delegate determined that his existing trademarks had not been significantly used across Australia. Evidence showed that M&M's existing Australian trademarks for Shady and Shady Limited hadn't been genuinely used across a range of merchandise categories, including clothing, bags, and footwear during the relevant period. Moreover, evidence further showed that there had been only 3 recent sales of Shady merch to customers in Australia during that period. The delegate also found that there were insufficient evidence that M&M had exercised the level of control over the Australian sale of merch required to maintain trademark protection in these specific categories. That brings up an interesting question that I want to circle back to. Something about this I've always wondered. And again, we're talking about this is, the laws in Australia are not the laws here, but there's a broad question that I've been thinking about when it comes to trademarks, but we'll come back to that. So more to this. Again, this is from digitalmusicnews.com. As a result, the Shady and Shady Limited trademarks will now be removed from several merch categories, thereby allowing Swim Shady to continue selling under its existing brand. The main issue at hand is the timing. M&M has long been known by his Slim Shady moniker, but he did not register Slim Shady as an Australian trademark in the country until after Swim Shady launched its own business. Swim Shady founders Jeremy Scott and Elizabeth Afrikoff said, quote, while this is an important milestone for Swim Shady, it is one step in the broader trademark proceedings, and we recognize there are still matters to be resolved, unquote. Indeed, the Australian ruling is just one part of the broader dispute. M&M has also opposed Swim Shady's trademark in several jurisdictions, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Japan. Meanwhile, his legal team has until July 22nd to appeal the decision in Australia. It's just the latest ruling in a series of high-profile trademark disputes, including Katy Perry's battle against Sydney designer Katy Perry and Taylor Swift's fight against a real-life showgirl. That's the story of the Taylor Swift thing, is what we talked about earlier. I did not know. So Katy Perry, I guess, I'm going to have to click that link because now I'm curious. We'll go down that rabbit hole. So I guess Katy Perry has been in some sort of legal battle with a designer from Sydney, Australia named Katy Perry. Uh-oh. So this brings the question that I always wonder about with this stuff. Let's go back a little bit. And again, I understand Australian law is different than in the United States, but let's see. Okay, this paragraph here. Moreover, evidence further showed that there had been only 3 recent sales of Shady merch to customers in Australia during that period. The delegate also found that there was insufficient evidence that M&M had exercised the level of control over the Australian sale of merch required to maintain trademark protection in the specific categories. So it raises the question, this is something I've always wondered about. What if someone trademarks something? They trademark a name, and then they just never do anything with it. So they own the trademark, and then they just park it. I don't know if that would be the right term. We use that term when it comes to website domains. You know, if you buy a web domain and you park it, you don't do anything with it. You just own it because you want to own it in case somebody needs it. They're going to have to pay you for it. What's to prevent people from doing that with trademarks? Is there anything to prevent people from doing that with trademarks? If you just think of something that's a cool name and you find out nobody has it yet, and you say, I'm going to trademark that. So if somebody wants to use that, they're going to have to come to me for it, or I'm going to get some sort of money from that. What's to prevent people from doing that? And I don't know. Apparently, in the Australia system of doing this, there is sort of a safeguard built in against people being able to do that, because if you buy a trademark, but then you're not using it. So in other words, M&M, after the Swim Shady brand launched, M&M, his legal team, went ahead and filed this trademark in Australia, right? Retroactively, in effect, right? But if they're not doing anything with it, and they're not going to do anything with it, I mean, it's almost a form of harassment in a way. Now, the way that M&M's legal team probably argues it is they would say, well, if it were not for Slim Shady, there would be no Swim Shady. Because obviously the point of the name Swim Shady, that's a play on the name Slim Shady, right? Swim and Slim rhyme, and it's not hard to figure out. In other words, if M&M had never used the Slim Shady alter ego and used that name, the Swim Shady brand would not exist. They would have called it something else, right? So that's probably how M&M's legal team argues it and why it's trademark infringement. But it sounds like in Australia, if you own a trademark, but then you're not using it, you're just parking it. Again, I don't know if that's the term when it comes to trademarks. You can't just claim it in perpetuity that your trademark is being infringed upon. And again, I don't know if the U.S. Patent Office, for example, treats that the same way. I don't know if they do. I hope that they do, because I think that they should. Because you shouldn't be able to just buy a trademark just to have it and then never do anything with it, and then be able to sue somebody because they're using it, especially because I assume the Swim Shady trademark was approved by Australia's, IP delegate, right? So now they're using it. You don't just, if you're a big company like that, you're not just going to, like a big swimwear company or whatever. You're not just going to start using a trademark without being sure that you can legally, right? Anyway, so that's something I've always wondered about. What's to stop people from abusing the trademark system? It's not that expensive. I know, because I've done it. It's not that expensive to file for a trademark. So what's to prevent someone from just buying up lots and lots of trademarks that they think someone's going to want to use? Or if you have knowledge, almost like insider trading, although that's definitely not the right term in this. I don't know what the term would be here. But if you have knowledge that somebody is going to be wanting to trademark something potentially, and you have some sort of insider knowledge about that, and you say, oh, I'm going to run and register this trademark. Now, I do know in the U.S. Trademark and Patent Office, they don't just give out trademarks like candy. You do have to supply some documentation. But again, what's to prevent someone from just kind of doing that frivolously and presenting that they have the intentions of using this trademark for something, but then in the end they don't use it, they're just parking it. So it's something I wonder about. Now, I wasn't planning on doing this, but now I'm curious. I'm going to click this, and see what this Katy Perry thing is all about. So apparently, this happened back in April in 2023. So this is not recent news, but I do think it's relevant. So, and that's why they included the link in the article. So I'm just going to go ahead and look at this. This is from digitalmusicnews.com. Katy Perry beats Katy Perry in a David and Goliath trademark battle, saying this is a win for small business. Okay. All right. So singer Katy Perry has lost a trademark lawsuit by Australian fashion designer Katy Perry. Katy Perry sued the pop star for allegedly infringing the designer's trademark with her merchandise. Oh, interesting. Okay. So on Friday, April 28th, and again, keep in mind, this is a few years ago, Justice Bridget Markovich ruled that clothing sold during Katy Perry's 2014 Australia tour breached designer and small business owner Katy Perry's trademark. Katy's company, Kitty Purry, must pay damages to Katy, the Australian designer, apparently, the amount of which will be determined in May. So we won't go through the whole thing because, again, it's old news. It's from a few years ago, but that's an example of, but again, this, and they do spell them differently, by the way. So Katy Perry, the Australian designer, spells it Katie. And of course, Katy Perry spells it, the singer spells it Katy. Okay.